Hello, this is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'd like to show you how I made this card. Let's get started. I'm going to be using the Ornate Style die stamp set. I'm going to be using this one and this one. I'm going to be using the Ornate Borders Dies. I'm going to be using this one here. And then for a sentiment, the Ornate Style doesn't have a sentiment. I'm grabbing this little hello from Bloom and Grow. For cardstock, I have a piece of Whisper White, which is, I think, 1 inch by 5 1/4 inches. I have a piece of black, which is 1 let's see, that's just 1 inch. And I have a piece of Whisper White, which is 2 1/2 by 4 1/8, and 2 3/4 by 4 1/4 on the black. And I have another piece of Whisper White, which is 4 inches by 5 1/2, and my card base, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4. I'm going to go ahead and put that aside for a minute. And I want to just double check this. Yeah. I think this needs to go down a little smaller. No, that's right. Okay, we're good. So this is, you can see it there, it's 1 notch above the 1/2 inch and 1 notch, so it's 4 1/8 by 2 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eighths. Okay. Let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and stamp this one. Oh, and I'm also going to be using Ornate Floral 3D embossing folder and some black rhinestones or clear rhinestones and the black blends so I can color them black. Okay, so I'm going to bring in this little piece, and I'm going to bring in the daisy first. My Memento ink, that's the only ink you're going to need, is the black ink. Let's move this out of the way. Alright, so we're going to stamp this daisy right in the center of this piece. Right smack in the center of it. Okay, perfect. And now I'm going to bring in this little ornate piece. There you go. I'm going to stamp that in all 4 corners. Just kind of lines up with the corner. I'm pulling it in about 1/4 inch, maybe not quite. I'm probably putting it in farther on this one than I did on my original, but it's alright. Alright, now I'm going to bring in the hello. Stamp that up here. That's all of our stamping. We're done with our ink, so we'll put that away. And I'm going to bring in this black layer, and we're going to go ahead and mount this right to the front of that layer. And I did forget to bring over the ribbon. It's not Stampin' Up ribbon, it's just some black 1/4 inch grosgrain ribbon that I had. Up. I don't know if you can see. There's this. We're done with the stamping, so we don't need that. So you can actually see the layer. It's just a tiny little layer. Okay. And let's bring in the rhinestones and color them and set them aside so that the ink has time to dry. Just need one large one. So I'm just going to color them with the edge, the side of my brush. You don't want to do it harshly, you want to do it very gently so you don't fray up your tip. I'm more like pouncing the ink on than brushing it on. And then I just need two of the smaller ones. I don't tend to use this dark black very much, except for doing stuff like that. Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to put them aside for now. Okay, now's the tricky part. It's a little tricky. It's not super tricky. We're going to bring in our layer piece. And this one we're going to run through our embossing folder. I'm thinking, because I came up with two different ways to do this. This way, where you just run this piece and then you have a separate piece for the die. And then the other way was I actually cut the die out of this piece. I measured over 1 inch. Put the die on. There's a cutting edge and a non-cutting edge. I put the cutting edge out, and at 1 inch I lined up these and cut it. But I left the piece larger to do that. And this is just much easier. It's a little less fiddly. So let me run this through this embossing folder. And I will be right back. Okay, there we go. There's that emboss piece. And I just realized I forgot a layer. I need a black layer that is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 to go on the front of this. And I'll be right back after I get that. Alright, I got that. Okay, so this is going to get mounted onto there. Go ahead and do that. Things are getting in my way. I line up a couple of sides, 3 sides. Set it down. Okay. And this can get put right on the front of our card base. You can use your wet glue or your tape runner, whichever you prefer. I like the wet glue because it gives me just a little bit of wiggle room in case I don't get something lined up correctly. I can move it like I just did there. Just a little bit. Okay, so there's that. Alright, now we're going to take this piece and we're going to die cut this out of it. Figure out which edge is the cutting edge. This is the cutting edge, okay. So I'm going to put the non-cutting edge as close as I can to this edge over here. And I'm going to tape it down with these little post-it tapes. Try to make it as straight as I can. It's probably easier to use my grid. And I can get it straight, tape it down, and then I'm going to go run it through my machine and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I got my ribbon as well, and as you can see it's narrower. It's an 1/8 inch. I don't have any more of that. That's alright. Okay, so this is how it cut out. If you're having trouble getting it to cut out, I recommend running it with the blades up and the paper on top. The paper taped from the back. I ran this one regular, going this way under the wheels of my blade. I didn't have any trouble this time. There is another die that's going to cut out this side here. That's what I did on this one, but I didn't. I like it better this way, so we're going to do this. It's a little less fussy this way. Alright, now we're going to bring in our card. We're going to bring in our black strip. We're going to bring in this piece here. We're going to glue this onto our strip. And what I do want to do before I do that, this area right here, I'm going to fussy cut out with my scissors, because I want a little more of that black to show through, but I don't want to cut off the tips of those leaves. So I'm just cutting around that little bobble and around this end of that leaf. Cut that little V out. I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Over. Cut around this leaf, around this little bobble. And then around that leaf there. Okay. Now I'm going to adhere this to this black piece like that. I'm just going to put little bits of Tombow glue on the back of it. These pieces just fall right out. Little bits of Tombow glue. You can use your sponge and your silicone mat. That's probably the smartest way to do it. I just have trouble keeping them still, and I end up with glue on the front, so this way works for me. Just put out just a tiny bit of glue and let the nose of the bottle push it around. I don't want much, just little tiny bits. A little bit over here. Okay, let's go ahead and set it down on our black piece. And we want this end. Come on. Give yourself just a little bit of a black edge on this edge, not a lot, just a little bit. Tiniest little bit. And I'm going to trim this right off here. Okay. Alright, now let's go ahead and glue this down to the front of our card. We're going to do that in that third quadrant that I always talk about over here. It's going to be the same size as the black layer underneath. And I've got like almost 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now we're going to bring in our stamped layer. Where did I put it? Oh, there it is, under the sequins. And I'm going to bring in my ribbon. And I'm going to tie, just to wrap it around it and tie a knot on the front side. I'm going to snip it because it's easier. Normally tie it off the ribbon. Maybe I'll tie a bow. Let's see. Do I have enough to tie a bow? Yeah, it's not perfect. I would bring in a glue dot. Stick a glue dot underneath it to hold it in place. Fiddle with that a little bit later. Okay, now we're going to put some dimensionals on the back. Well, that might be part of the problem. It twisted on the back. Okay, make sure it's right side up. Center it up top to bottom on this side. Okay, bring in those rhinestones. I put one down here, the big one. Then I put one of the small ones sort of diagonally next to it. Another one up here to make that triangle to move your eye around the page. And that's a card we just made together. And here's the one I did previously. Well, thank you for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.